and welcome back to Simply Mastering. This is episode 5, and we're going to be working on a very simple house track today. So what I want to do, I'm going to pretty much jump right into this, but I do want to go over the plugin chain as I normally do, and then we'll jump right into it. We'll listen to the mix and see what's going on. First of all, we have Slick EQ. This is the mastering edition. You want to make sure that if you have the demo of this, that you get in the habit of taking screenshots of your settings, because it won't remember them between sessions. So we're going to go ahead and set this up a little bit differently than I normally do. I'll change the quality to insane and turn this EQ gain off, and we'll play around with the rest of this later once we get started. Next in the chain we have the MJUC Junior, and this guy is set to auto. Next up is the DCAM Free Comp pink compressor from F Expansion. What we're going to do is set this on 30. The attack, the release is automatic, so we don't have to worry about that. Make sure the ratio is on 2. Following that we have limiter 6, and we are going to be using these two sections only. We're just not even going to bother with this. Except for initial setup here, do make sure that your ceiling is set to -0.2, which it should be by default, but just in case. And we're going to go ahead and flip this up to the upper setting here. And we're pretty much just going to leave it there, and we're going to be focusing on these two sections today. Okay, so let's go ahead and listen to the mix. Now again, I'm going to recommend that you stop the video, pause the video at this point, and go ahead and listen to the mix on your own, straight through, all the way through from the beginning to the end. Maybe do it a couple times, just to familiarize yourself with the track and listen for those two key ingredients that we're going to be focusing on when we master the track, and that is the equalization and the amount of compression. Take mental notes, and I know I always say this, but take mental notes and ask yourself, hey, is it too bright? Is it too dark? Is there too much bass, or are we missing some mid-range? Is the track compressed too much? Is it not compressed enough? That type of thing. Okay, so I am going to flip through the mix quickly for the sake of keeping the video within a half an hour. But again, I do encourage you to take some time and really listen to the mix, because that's an important step. Before we touch it, before we do anything, you want to make sure you've listened to it and you know the direction you want to go. All right. Fortunately, the mix doesn't change very much over the course of the 6 or so minutes that it's going. That's a good thing because we don't have to worry about too many different sections. We do have this quieter part in the middle. This area here, in this region, is a little bit more dense than it is over here. I'll go ahead and play that again just to illustrate what I'm talking about. This area is a little bit more dense. It's actually a little bit louder than this over here. So one of the things I think we can focus on is this section over here. We'll work on this primarily, and then we'll go back and we'll check the other areas to make sure that everything fits in. But I think that this, if we focus on this area here, it's much more dense. We'll make sure that this doesn't end up being too warm, too muddy. We want to make sure that we retain the brightness throughout the entire track, obviously, but I think we could actually make this a little bit brighter. I think there's a lot of bass. We could bring the level of presence out in the mid-range and just shift the overall energy from the bottom where it is up to the top where I think it should be. And I can point that out here pretty simply. Let me pull up the display here. I'm going to illustrate with this. I don't actually want to use this to do anything, but I just want to illustrate what I think needs to happen with this mix in terms of the overall balance of the EQ. Where it is right now kind of feels like this to me. It feels a bit heavier in the low end, whereas it should be more balanced like this. So what I want to do to counter that is something like this. And we'll take care of that using the actual EQ bands. And we'll just leave this actually turned off. Not even going to use it. But that's generally what I want to accomplish with the EQ when we get to this stage. So the first thing, obviously, that I want to do, and I do this every single time, is turn on my limiter and set the output level where I want it to be, because what I want to make sure I do is make all of my adjustments into the limiter so that I'm actually hearing it at the level that it will end up at the end of the process. So for metering, I have the standard Studio One VU meter, and I also have the VUMT here from Klanghelm. So we have two different ways of looking at this, and I have the VUMT calibrated to -10, which I think is a pretty good place for a solid master. And we have this at a scale of 6, and the sensitivity is all the way down. Alright, so I'm going to leave these two tacked open, and we'll go ahead and set the level. Now I want to set the level at this area here, because I believe this is a little bit louder than this, but we'll just double check. A little bit of compression on the front, and then the level. Okay, so here we go. I think for the sake of consistency, there's something we can actually do to this. I'll leave this down here. And what I actually want to do in this case is a little bit of trickery here. I'm going to take this VUMT Duo I have over here. I'm going to copy it onto the track itself and recalibrate this to -18. Now by doing this, I can essentially guarantee that I have the same level coming into all of my masters as I do more and more of these tracks, or more and more of these videos. If I keep a consistent level of input going on, it'll be easier to keep the settings basically at a point where it can be a little bit more clear, rather than having completely different settings for every track. If we start off with all of the songs at the same level, it'll be a little bit easier to keep things standardized. So I've gone ahead and turned this off because I want to hear the mix, and what I want to do is set the main RMS level of the mix at -18, and then we'll work from there. Okay, so that seems to be pretty good. Now, it's okay to go back and make changes as you're working. Obviously I started doing this and then I thought to myself, maybe I should calibrate the mix and get it up to a level where I think it's a bit more standardized. So now we'll go back, we'll go through and we'll just change these settings. That's good for now. We'll probably end up coming back to change this a little bit later. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is address the equalization. We need to get this thing balanced a little bit before we hit the compressors. So, come over here and we'll start working on this thing. Now, one of the things that I always want to make sure I do is balance the EQ before I go into the compression. So what I'll do here is I'll play the mix and I'll just gradually start to go through and adjust the bands. And we will try to balance this thing out because I think it's a little bass heavy. So we'll balance this thing out a little bit and then we'll go into the compression, which we might not need too much of. But we'll see when we get there. Let's see what we need to do here. I think that's a pretty good start. Pretty drastic, actually, for a mastering scenario. I mean, I don't know that I've ever gone 3.5 dBs up before, but in this particular case, it's really helping. I think that the mix could be a little bit more balanced in this regard, but we were able to fix it pretty well with this. I think this is okay. If I weren't able to get, close to this result, I'd probably end up sending the mix back. But I don't think it has too many problems now that I've dialed this in. It's not perfect, but again, the point of these videos is just to basically show you what to do and how to go about the process of mastering, and the perfection will come with time. The more you practice, the more you do this, and you'll be able to spend as much time as you want to really nail this. So let's go ahead into our first compressor. Now again, this one, I don't generally like to do a lot of compression with this, but in this case, I think we'll just take a little bit off the top, maybe get about, I don't know, a dB of reduction, and then we will move on to the next compressor. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we don't want to have any noticeable flickering of that needle. Just enough to take a little bit off the top so there's a slight, and I mean a very slight volume difference with the plugin bypassed versus when the plugin is not bypassed. Alright, so the next one we'll come in here, make sure this is on an attack of 30, and we'll go ahead and set this one so we just have a little bit of movement on the needle. I think that's good. Let's go back to our limiter now, and we'll check and see if our settings still hold up. I think we've got a really good place for this. And again, you can take this further. You can further tweak this and make it as good as you feel you can. You don't even have to necessarily stick to what I've been doing. If you wanted to put the equalizer after the compressor, as long as you're getting the result that you want, if the sound is in some way improved by what you're doing, that is the whole point. Now, I generally rule of thumb wise say put the EQ in front of the compression. It's okay to, if you need to, it's okay to put another equalizer after the compression. Or maybe the EQ works better for a particular track after the compression. It really depends on the track. So in that regard, it doesn't matter what this order is. But as a general rule of thumb, this is a good way to start. Okay. One of the things I want to do before I close this video out is just play the mix and show this here. From there. So if you're using the VUMT, that's about what you want to be looking at. Alright, so I think with that, I will leave the track in your hands. So once again, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, if you want to see more, if you have any feedback whatsoever, please go ahead and leave me some comments. You can rate my videos and subscribe to the channel, and I'll keep bringing you guys more of these. If you have a track that you want me to use, by all means go ahead and contact me and let me know. Send it over, and I'll use it in a future episode of this series. Alright, with that, I'm going to go through, play the track again, and happy mastering.